me after I start recording. We'll see. Can you still hear me, Balfour? Because I'm recording on, I'm doing a desktop recording, so I'm worried that that was what the problem was before. Oh, thank God. Okay. Note to self, do the desktop recording, no, do the Discord first and then the desktop recording afterwards. I think I just probably stole the microphone away for some reason. Okay, so let's try that again. Where was I? So, nope, not that. Screen am I on? This one. This one. Okay, hopefully you can see the screen. Hi, n8n. How's it going? Good to have you here. Okay, so yeah, the app that I wanted to present was SimpleRick's hosting service. So the idea is very, very simple. I wanted to have, I'll explain it just very briefly again. I wanted to have a service where I can very quickly and easily get a backend for Noodle, one of the Noodle provided backends running with an HTTPS address, so that if I have a test website that I'm publishing to Vercel or something like that, that I can have a backend that will actually work. Because if it's locally hosted, obviously it doesn't work. If it's in your own locally hosted Docker, it's not going to work. So I created a server with a container management system called Proxmox, open source system. And I've got n8n in the middle of it that I want to show as well, as a way to use Noodle as a front end dashboard to manage what's happening on a back-end server and actually running like bash commands on the back end. So the idea is you sign up, you create a backend, it does a request, so it creates a backend in my database, and then it does a request to n8n to ask it to create a backend. What's happening when it goes out to n8n is, so this is n8n. If you've never used n8n before, it's like make or Zapier, but it's better than Zapier. It's more like make or Node-RED or something like that. And so when a backend request comes in, this is the workflow. So there's still no code, like or low code. There's actually still some bits and pieces of code, but actually I think this one doesn't really have a lot of code in it. You can put code nodes into n8n, but it actually has a huge library already of like, where could I get some examples of stuff like, I don't know, you're working with HubSpot, it's got a HubSpot integration, it's got GitHub integration. Don't know what it does with GitHub, but creating issues. I wonder, does it do any actions? Oh yeah, go to users repositories, triggers. No, that's it. Oh yeah, check run. Okay, no, it can't launch an action. That's a bit sad, but anyway, it has a lot of integrations, like Brevo as well. Handy for sending emails if you're using Brevo to send emails. So I'm actually thinking a lot at the moment about using n8n more than using the Noodle Cloud functions, because it's really good. I like the way that you can more easily manage the executions, and in the way that you can see like how the executions have run. So each one has a log created where you can see what actually happened when the execution when the workflow was called. So you can see like the results of every step and any errors that happened. So what this one is doing is receives the request from Noodle, and then it just does the execute command. It's just because n8n can be running on Docker, which is fine if you like Docker. I like running it directly on the server, because then you have this execute command node where you can actually just run as root user, which is really dangerous. But you can run things as the root user with like bash commands. So it's like as if I was in my Linux server terminal and I'm typing commands directly into the terminal. So it asks for the Proxmox container status of 103, whatever the container is that it wants to check. And then it, what does it say, 103? It's funny, I thought I had it. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll have to check that afterwards. Oh yes, that's it. I know why. 103 is the template container. So it checks to see first if the template container is in use, as if it's being copied already. And if it is being used, then if it's not stopped, which means it's not being used, then it sends the command back round again. It makes it wait for 10 seconds. Another cool thing about n8n is there's not really a limit on how long a workflow can be executed for. There are some sort of limits, but you can set them higher. So I have one client where the n8n workflow runs for up to 30 minutes or something like that, because it's asking an AI some questions, and so it like has to wait a long time. It's like a custom AI. It takes a long time for it to answer, so it can go up to like 30 minutes. So if it is stopped, then it clones the template and it takes data from, so it takes data from the input nodes, the webhook node. It takes the parameters that we got through from there. So when you send a call, like you test out the workflows first, and it detects what parameters you've sent through. So you decide what parameters you want to send in Noodle in the cloud function part. So in the or just in a function, you decide what parameters you want to send through, and then n8n will parse them out and say, okay, you've got this, and this available to you. Which I don't think I have any good examples here, but anyway, the webhook step, for example, has a container number, has an IP number, and whatever. So it's composing like a bash command that it's going to run on the server with the bits and pieces that I've sent through from the API call. So it's going to clone container 103. It's going to use a new container number which I've sent through. It's going to assign it 526 megabytes of memory just to make sure that none of them are overloading the server. And then it's going to give it an IP address that has, the IP number that I sent through. So it's cool that you can just run these like quite complex commands with bits and pieces from your API. And then if that works, then that afterwards sets an IP forwarding whole thing with, forwarding the public address to an internal IP address. Oops. And then it creates a reverse proxy as well in the server. Why did I do that? Oh yeah, it makes an nginx reverse proxy so that I can give it a public domain name, which is going to be through Cloudflare. So unique id.simplerixlowcodehosting.com, and then it routes it back to the IP that we just created. And then it sets up a Cloudflare subdomain. So it does an API call to Cloudflare and says, hey, I want to have a subdomain. Here's my IP address or my API key stuff. And here is the subdomain that I want you to set up an A record for, pointing towards a certain IP address, which is the one we just set up. And then I add the container ID to result that. I can't remember why I do that. Oh yeah, because the results of this node don't carry forward the content of the previous nodes, and so I like enrich the output of it's like just a success output of this. I enrich it with the original container ID and then send it back to the, what do I do? Yeah, and then I send it back eventually to Noodle to say, yep, it's all good, it's finished. I also schedule a workflow. So this is a different workflow in my n8n environment, which is set to pause the container, because I don't want the containers to run all day long because they're free containers. I just want them to run for 6 hours and then pause. So I don't have like a whole bunch of containers that nobody's using that are active in there. So that workflow, I can't schedule it for a certain date. That's something that annoys me, and I'm not sure how to do it. But I've looked it up and I think it's not really possible. The workaround was I'm not going to schedule it for 6 hours in the future. I'm going to, in the other workflow, I'm going to tell it to wait. So it'll trigger the workflow and immediately the workflow will start waiting for 6 hours. So this is what I meant about like there's no real limit of how long it can take to run a workflow. So you'll have a whole bunch of pending executions. or like running executions in there that are just waiting to run. And then after 6 hours, it'll run something telling it to shut down the container. And once it's shut down, then the user can click a button to resume the backend, to restart the backend, and that'll send another request. I think it's directly from the front end. Where is it? Yeah, so that sends, it sends a request directly from the front end to n8n that then checks if the container is actually stopped or not, because otherwise it just returns an error. So checks the status, and if it is running, if it's not running, then it starts it, and if it is running, it stops it. So it's, I think the button is like either start or stop. I know, I remember what it was. It's either it's already stopped because of the automatic workflow that stops things, or it starts and so it starts it again, or it's actually already running and the person, maybe the backend isn't functioning right or something, so the person can restart it to get it to like reboot basically if there's a problem with it. So it stops the container and then starts the container again, telling it if, sending me back a webhook response if it fails. So in Noodle I can deal with what happens if it fails. And then in both cases, so the branches out, and in both cases it branches back to a response where it just kicks out whatever the response is. So it'll just say, command run successfully or whatever. And then in the front end, I know what to do with the success or failure signals from that workflow. So yeah, it seems complicated, but I really just wanted to show how interesting it is to be able to do direct bash commands here in like terminal commands from n8n, because it's installed in the server directly on the server using npm, that it can run these commands as root user. So incredibly dangerous, and if not set up right, then you're in trouble. So I've set up an API key so that you have this path, but if you try to call this path without the API key, then it won't work. Not in this case, because it's not a publicly accessible one. This one. So this one is set up with an API key. So you can set your own API keys. It's stored in like environment variables, so it's stored safely, and then you have to make the call with the API key in the header to access this workflow. So nobody can just dial that workflow endpoint if they want to mess around with it or something. So they can't just kind of inject commands. And even if they could, if they were to send their own parameters through to this, it's not going to run anything other than what I've put in here. So like even if they get to this point, like this one has a lot of weaknesses. Probably there's plenty of stuff that you could inject into this to make this run. Maybe if you got the container number bit at the end, you could probably put a kind of like and symbol and like make it run some sort of root command to take over, change the password or something like that. So yeah, you would have to make sure that this cannot be sent from outside and just somebody can just inject whatever they want in here, because that would be the end of your server. So make sure the API, maybe even header auth is not strong enough. Maybe you should have like a JSON web token or something like that, like super strong, so that that the call definitely came from your app. And actually what I'm doing here is not safe, because I think in here there is actually the API key. So if you got your hands on through the web browser console, if you got your hands on the project JSON, then you would probably be able to find this function, and you would be able to find like the API key in there, because I'm not using a config node, which I should be, and I'm going to after this call, just because I shouldn't give the example and invite people to come steal stuff. But yeah, the config node should be here to supply the API key. It's not really important with the cloud functions, because the cloud functions, the API key is directly in here, but the cloud function won't be present in the project JSON that you have in the browser. So you won't be able to just fish through my project JSON and find the cloud functions. But you would be able to do that with, as I was just showing you, you would be able to do that with this one. So you could go and find the API key, make your own request. All the details are in there on how to make a request. So you would find the right parameters that you need to send to be able to take over the server if you were in through this one. So using the config node, it means that your API key gets stored in your own backend, in my backend that I use for this app, and you would be able to call that securely from. It would make an API call from the front end to get the API key to run that in here, and so in theory that's safer. It's probably still not 100% safe, and probably somebody could, if they were watching, could get in and pirate the server. So I think after this call I might have to have some serious thoughts about security, but that could be something to discuss anyway. I hope that was interesting. Oh, Fred's here. Cool. Fred, do you have something you want to show and tell today? Or does no, Fred, not ready yet. Oh, come on. So Balfour, I guess you haven't got anything, or maybe Balfour, have you got something you want to show and tell today? Sorry, I realized that I asked you earlier and you couldn't hear me, so you didn't know. Okay, no worries. Fred, you got nothing that you're working on at the moment that you'd like to show us, just to give us a little peek? It doesn't have to be something finished. Like, I just showed you something that's a mess, that's completely not secured. Like, anybody could hack me right now if they wanted to. Video not streaming. Oh, that sucks. Oh yeah, no, I stopped my video stream. You can just see me probably. You got nothing that you want to give us a peek, a little sneak peek, Fred? Because otherwise I've got nothing else. So yeah, Firebase off, would love it. Anything you want. Just stick up your hand or I'll give you the mic. Hold on. How do I do that? There. I'm giving you the mic.
Hello everyone.
Hey Fred.
Hi there.
How's it going?
Okay, so wow, my first doing a streaming like this. I'm not even a tech guy, so the way I say things may not be tech sounding.
Doesn't matter. We're all in the same boat, I think, in the low code community. Don't worry, it's all good. You can try to share your screen. I hope
Right.
it works, and it might have a problem sharing your screen. I don't know if you've never done it before.
Yeah, so let me see because I'm using Windows 11 and I have two desktop, so I switch between desktops. I need to see if share your screen. Window. Entire screen. Okay, maybe if I do entire screen, it is gonna work.
Okay.
Let's see. All right, let's see.
Yeah, it's working.
I guess you see my screen.
Yes.
Do you still see my screen here?
Yes.
All right then. Well, I'm glad then you can see everything. I'm working on this thing anyway. What can how can I start this thing? So basically, yes, I have about 25 to 27 components for both authentication authorizations, CRUD, plus media files, sign in, sign up. I don't know how I'm gonna have time to write the full documentation because it's a lot. It's a lot. And I have a full-time job, sort of, which is not tech at all. So this is a side project, so it takes a lot of time. Anyway, what can I say? Yes, let's do a little auth, thing with this Firebase. so I started to build Firebase with, let's say, yeah, this one first. The first component was uh, the initializations component, which includes a huge head script to basically import all the Firebase functions, all that are needed in my case. We can even import more with a star, import star, but then you probably import a bit too much. So once you import all the functions for authorization, for writing in a Firestore database, and for storage, you need to expose them so they are accessible throughout the app with the Windows object. That's about it. So you find the head coding obviously in for it. I just added them in as a kind of documentation in the component. You
Can I,
still hear me, right?
yeah, can I ask a question, Fred?
Yeah, yeah.
So the head code and all of the different files that are in there, I guess you have the choice of, am I going to include the files directly in the project folder, or am I going to just provide a link to where Google have hosted the files? So I don't know if you did it. I don't really know if there's a difference in terms of speed or anything like that. If you, but I guess this way you don't actually have to download like the full JavaScript file. Maybe you're only
Yeah.
importing parts of it.
Yeah, so it's a good point. I'm too beginner to understand still. So yes, I know that we could use the npm, I believe, right?
Yeah,
npm to
that's right.
download all the functions. I'm still not very familiar. This npm, I guess, you need to do the npm to run npm within the Noodle project folder, and then put all those functions in a specific folder.
Yeah, something like that. Which
Yeah, so I'm
I've done it in some projects, and I don't know. I'm not smart enough with that stuff either to know, is that actually a waste because you're like installing the whole npm file in there. You don't actually need all of it, and like what you've done is maybe better because you're only importing certain objects from the JavaScript file. You're not actually downloading the whole thing into the browser. But I don't know exactly how it works.
Yeah, I need to write to read the documentation. Probably there is a way to also npm only the desired functions. I'm not sure yet, but since I was familiar with that way, from the GS SDK, this is what I did.
Yeah,
But definitely, you can download. I just didn't want to spend too much time on it, and I'm still quite new, and NPM, CDN, all these things are still very new to me. So,
yeah,
but I'm learning every day from the Discord channel anyway.
yeah. It's a first version,
So
so it's
anyway,
not a big deal.
this is the head code. Uh, Yes, yes, yes. So this is the head code. What did I want to show is Firebase setup. Yes, so let me see, initialization. Yes, so I made it so that you enter all your Firebase project config keys. There are a few. So this is discussion we had in the channel, is that these keys are obviously exposed because we are on the front end. And this is not best practice, although Firebase does confirm that it is fine to expose them, which is a bit contradictory anyway, because I think it still gives leeway to any hackers, to dig further. So even though this is fine, and right now I'm building, I know at some point as you scale, when you scale, yes, you better save all those keys in a secret. I'm trying to figure out a way to do it in a cheap way. There are I wanted to show you this one here. Bitwarden. I don't know if you've heard of that, which is turned now called now Vault Warden, and it's very interesting. It has a Git project I can share on the channel. It's a free open source, and that's something you need to install somewhere in a cloud, in your cloud. It could be in one of the Google free tier, Google Cloud free tier. There is a Google Cloud that is free, a bit like the Firebase I'm using. Google Cloud here, yes. Anyway, very techy, too much for me for now. And what I suggest is when you are ready is to have a little Xano account. You create an API endpoint with just your Firebase init. So you run the function. You run the function Firebase config from Xano, and all the keys are in their environment safe environment variable. So that's a very easy work around it. Very simple, very simple. So yes, Firebase starts with that. You have the head script, and then you have to run the init initialization file, which include a few more variables which you're gonna use throughout the project. So some variables are declared here for use later on. That's about it here. Let me go back to the app. Yes. So from this initialization, what happens is that you have to run the very popular get current user function, which is same as with Supabase or Xano, I believe, which creates an object with a few key information, the UUID of the user, which is generated by Firebase. You have very important email verified, true or false, as well as if you are logged in or not. So these are information that I save in an object so that it can be reused. So I can verify if the email is verified or not, and whether then you can access a page or not. Okay. So that was the get current user, and from there, well, here in my app, I of course run it to see if the user is still logged in. If it's still logged in, if the cookie is still valid, if the token is still valid, it routes you directly to your page with your account, like this page, M4B, etc. If not, if you're not logged in, it throws you to the login sign up page. And if you are doing your login, then if you are, yes, entering your information, your credentials, and you are validated, of course, you go also to the user page where you have access to the other, reset, update, and delete account functions. So that's about it for the start. Sign out, yes, of course there is sign out. Let me go to the sign up, sign in, sign up. So yes, here. Well, it's a very basic. I'm not sure. Yeah, I need to log out actually to show you how it works. And then here I need to go back to. No, I said log out. How come?
You're on design mode. You're not on preview mode.
Oh yeah, yes, that's why. There you go. Okay, so I'm here. That is a very basic page. You enter. So now let me go back again to auth. Yeah, I like the design side because when I click somewhere, takes me direct to the setup panel. I like the shortcut. I
Super
forgot I
useful.
was in the design mode.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes, the very nice shortcut. I remember using Wappler actually back in the days, and I like the way they were splitting the whole UI, where on the left you most likely had the backend, all the backend functions, and on the right the front end. So you never changed page. Everything was in one page. I like that. It was fast. Uh, so yes, here sign. Yeah, so very basic email input because in Firebase, if I go to Firebase authentication, I added the few sign-in methods, the email and password method, the Google method, anonymous, and there is one that is I didn't add yet, which is the passwordless auth also, which is nice. It sends you a URL, you click, and that's how you log in. Anyway, so this is enabled. So here I just use for now the email and password. Uh, so I have um, this component here that okay, so sign in. Yes, there you go. So you can sign in either with the email and password, or with the Google Auth pop-up. Huh? Here, very basic function I did with the GPT-4. It sounds a little bit, it looks heavy like this. It's just because I put a lot of error log here to check how it's going. Lots of different outputs, which we can remove a few actually. I added a few cases, so it's easier to debug with the Google Chrome Dev tool based on the error message. But it's otherwise it's a very basic sign in function.
And for that, for
When you are
the
signed in,
sorry, if I could ask a question for the Google Auth pop-up, I'm interested how that works. Are you sending them to like a separate page, or when you run that function, does it like just generate a pop-up in the screen, or like how does that work?
yes, I will do a quick demo then.
Cool.
So yeah, basically, you see, I'm using the Noodle variables that are declared in the init component. This is where I use them, right? So yeah, basically same thing. It opens. I mean, I declare a few variables here. Check that the information is available, and then that's about it. I mean, it's uh, very much straightforward. And yes, I will show you how it works. Once I have this, I of course output the user information, especially the email, which actually I should actually probably output this email as well, because I cannot sign in if I don't have. Let me see here, user info. You see, for example, here, I need to see how it would work when I do that, where it takes me. I haven't tested. I know it. The sign in works. However, the logic to navigate, then I didn't dig, meaning that I'm supposed to send the email, the email, the registration email to the page parameter, because I use it as a check. So let's do a quick test here. Go out, log out, and I'm going to do a sign in. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so there is a pop-up. And I'm going to use, well, yes, this one. I authorize. So of course, I need to beautify this. Oops, sorry, what did I do here? I went too fast. Where am I? There you go. Yes, I need to change those names. These are just name of the project, and that's something that you can change, of course. And because the scopes are limited to user info and email, it doesn't ask me any more information. So then I do continue, and boom, I have been authorized. I have been logged. I am inside. I'm inside my page.
How did you go from that? So, because I didn't know that you actually, I've never done the OAuth thing in Noodle before, so I didn't know that you had that window dot sign in pop up like object that you were using in the Noodle editor. That's a really cool one. But I didn't get how like from the sign in with Google Auth component. Yeah, how does it user detail. At what point does it access like the Firebase auth to do the authentication and like to get that user object, like to say, oh, now you're signed in? Like, where does it transition between you're not signed in to, oh, I got a result, it's positive, so I'll sign the user in?
Here you have this function called sign in with pop-up. And so of course, it's declared in the in a head script.
Okay.
And this is where everything happens.
Hmm.
And when you run this with the auth and the provider service, basically it fetches the email address which you choose.
Mm.
And then it does it does it on its own, honestly.
Oh,
I checked the Firebase documentation. I saw what they were describing. I described the same thing in GPT-4, and I asked it for a JavaScript function, and it threw me this.
that's really
Uh,
cool. So
I
it means that you just use that sign in with pop up function that's already provided with Firebase that you've put in the head code, and it just does everything. And then afterwards, you like as soon as that's done, the result is that you have the current user object is accessed. Like you already have the current user logged in.
Yeah, yes,
Wow, that's cool. That's
yeah,
very
exactly.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. Once it's you're logged in, yes. Log out. Bye. Yeah. So there are things to of course to authorize. If I go back to here, what's important here? Where is it? Set persistence. Yes. Okay. So this is for actually either when you refresh the page you log out, or if you close the page you logged out or not. Let me see. No, it's not here. Yes, Google Auth provider. Yeah, this is the key one. Yeah, Google Auth provider. So it's going to understand the the provider you are using. Again, if I'm back here, sign in methods. When you decide of a sign in method, basically you enable providers, sign in providers. They are providers. So Google is a provider. Email and password is another provider. So this function, when you run it in their provider, it understands. Okay, oh, okay, you're using this Firebase function. I know now we are not using the email and password function. We are using the Google provider. And this is how you can also use Twitter to log in, or LinkedIn.
Mm.
Same thing. It's through provider. The function provider does it all.
It's nice.
It's all it's what I love with Firebase. I mean, is that there is already a lot included in the functions for Firebase, so you don't have to bother. Like I see Shrey, I think, doing a lot of work for Supabase, fetching the user information. Here it's done. It's there already. I have it. I have it all here. My output. I just decide to add a dot email if I want to fetch the email. And otherwise, there is tons of information in user info that I can fetch that is automatically generated by Firebase.
It's nice.
Uh,
It's really
they
nice.
have tons of function. So yeah, I really like it. I'm not saying that I'm an expert in Firebase. I still have a hard time with documentation and what's an SDK. I mean, all these things to me are still very strange. So I'm learning as I do it. And I wanted to learn Nodal while building these components. I thought it would be a big challenge. And I'm glad I did because I learned everything about how JavaScript works and component input, output, and all these things. So I'm glad I did that because then I managed to build that little portal in a matter of like 2 weekends. Um, Sign in, Google Auth. Of course, obviously there is a logout, not from this space, of course, but you can log out. Quite simple. Yes, with Firebase also, once you sign up for the first time, when you sign up, you have to go through email verification, and the email verification is also quite basic. It sends an email to your email address, and you need to click to verify that you own this email address. So I like it because it prevents all those bots to create an account and start phishing around. They are blocked after the sign up. They are blocked if they don't authorize if they don't verify their email. And so basically, I cannot. No one can go past that wall and reach the next page if the email is not verified. Very simple. Uh, so that's it about the user auth. Yeah, user persistence is here. You have um, two options, local or session. And I added this little summary in within the component actually, which is uploaded in the repo, the public repo I made, explaining what's the function of each local and session and known. That's how you keep the cookie or not of your sign login.
Nice.
And yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I think
that's
you've
that's
learned
about it.
you've learned a huge amount of stuff about Noodle just from making these components. I think you're pretty much a Noodle master now.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where I started to struggle is with the understanding of objects and arrays.
Hmm.
The documentation, I think, is written by people who know the product, and they didn't write it in a way that is easily accessible from no coders like me, beginners, and it's very very hard to understand. To be honest,
Yeah.
and
And
the Firebase Auth setup really forced me to learn all these things. But yeah, in the crude, let's say if I go to, no, I need to then go to my user page. There you go. So this is the page when users are logged in. Um, and I can query here. I'm very happy that I managed to do a nice function to query with filters. Uh, Filter order and a filter with a limit, account limit. Uh, it's a bit of a more complex. It's not that complex actually. It's not that complicated. Uh, And where I was struggling is with this. Yeah, there you go here. The objects here. Here I was when you input in data, I was just connecting it to an object, so I could see the value in the object populating as I type in, and then it was just a mess. And one thing I understand that is a key is the difference between naming an object or having it uh, being generated randomly. It's very important to understand the difference. What it does for the rest of your app, naming or not. And here for service, for example, it's an array. It's supposed to every time I click add offering, it's an array. And when you feed an array with different objects, you don't want to name your object. You actually want so this is what I did. I did a create new object, and the ID is generated. The new ID is generated, and this is the way to generate objects that add up into the array. If you don't do that, it doesn't work. But you see things that I don't read, I don't understand well in documentation, for example. And so, yeah, the simple fact of adding create a new object to have a new object ID is what was needed, and that's why I was struggling before because I was naming my object.
Yeah, I think the problem with this, with the documentation as well, is that this isn't like standard arrays and objects from JavaScript. Because if you were just using script, you would be able to, like, I'm not a coder, but I know a little bit. If you were using JavaScript, you would be able to put whatever objects you want in an array. You don't have to have IDs, or you can have an ID if you want, or you can have 10 different IDs per object if you feel like it. You have
Yeah.
like this complete liberty. But the Noodle thing is that they created the array and object system, and in a way that every time an array is created or an object is created, it has a listener attached to it. So when you've created that object there, if somewhere else you reference that object and something changes, then the output of on the front end, the output will be updated automatically. Like taking advantage of all that React magic of, like, as soon as something's updated, all the objects get updated too. Whereas if you were to go through functions and just write script and just create these objects by hand and code them out and then insert them into an array with code and like have everything working with code, then it'll work more flexibly. But then you
Yeah.
wouldn't have that auto updating thing that happens with
Yeah.
like the React components.
Exactly, with this one, for example,
Yeah.
here is an array, I name it, and actually this is an array that exists inside this component here, which I build little by little,
Mm.
and that's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's I have to admit it's beautiful, but it's very important to understand how it works, and it's a big struggle otherwise.
Yeah, that's true.
It's quite a struggle.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
this has been really interesting, but I've got to jump, I'm afraid. So I don't know if you have anything you
yeah.
wanna. Do you wanna finish with something or?
No, 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 no. It's all good. I think we'll need to do a full demo,
Yes.
when I am more comfortable and the page is ready here, the page.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just more comfortable. I believe everything works well now, so that's all good, honestly. Yeah, I just want maybe one question for you quickly. I wanted to understand how I can understand what app is. App is not a page, right? App is just like a what? Like a global bucket that is the first thing that is loaded. How can I
Yeah,
understand app?
it's a really good question. So app in Noodle is the equivalent of the index.html file, kind of, in your project folder,
Um, yes.
where because React is not everything that you're creating inside Noodle is not really pages. It's not really making like a login.html page. It's creating a React component in a tree of components, and then when it loads it in the front end, it decides what components it actually needs to put into like the DOM, the what do they call it, the something object model, I forget what it's called. where it decides which objects, which components, which pages it needs to put into the real tree that's going to be displayed to the user, or like the user will feel like they're working through in their browser. So the app is kind of the only real page that exists. The app is when the user goes to like, fredsapp.com, it's the app component that gets loaded. And then everything else that's inside there, like if it goes like fredspage.com/login, it's not really a slash. It's actually still app, and it's app displaying something else. Like it's app putting the login component in to the tree and into the path. And so it's why you put all the stuff in app, is because app is the only element that's always visible across all views. Whereas the login page is just a particular view, and it's like a sub object of app. It's a subcomponent of the app, right? So that the app is really the main component that is always present. It's the top of the tree, basically. Right?
I see. Yeah, the top. Yes, definitely. Yes. Yeah. I want to make a splash screen for a future PWA. The splash screens should be loaded here.
No, I mean not necessarily, because the app has a router in it normally by default. So the page router like the router that you have in the app, the default page is the one that's going to get shown when the app gets loaded. The actual app page itself never shows. It just loads a page router, or like you could just have an app page with nothing else. I guess like you can have a header in an app, but yeah, if you wanted this splash screen, I think actually
I would add it to the
actually a splash screen. You would add that in. There's like when you create an app wrapper, so like capacitor or something like that, or in Bubble it was the BDK, the Bubble Development Kit. They actually have a way of putting up a splash screen that's actually in the native code of the wrapper. So when the app opens, it really shows a splash screen. It's not your app, and it's loading.
Okay. So it's not even in the app itself.
Yeah. It would load the app component in the background, and then once it detects that the page is loaded in the wrapper, then it'll put down the splash screen and show the app instead. So that's a kind of trick that you can do in native apps.
Anyway, well, I'm far from this. Anyway, this is a second leg of an app I am building. The first leg is done already with the SAP AppGyver, which is finished, and the portal as well is done. But I cannot stand this tool anymore, and I needed to redo it. And I'm glad that I learned this, because it was perfect for this use case. That's it for now.
Excellent. Well, that was really, really cool sharing, Fred. Thanks a lot for that. It was really interesting. I'll put the video up on YouTube so other people can see it too.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's very quick and basic, and I believe if a few people are seriously interested in a Firebase solution, where I also show more security features, because I haven't gone through if I go to quickly database rules. There you go. This is where the security happens. Maybe if we manage to gather more interest, we can do a full 45 minutes demo, and people can ask questions about what's wrong, how to do this and to do that. But I need more time to make sure I perfectly know my thing.
Yeah, we'll do another show and tell in a couple of weeks, I think. So we'll have plenty of time for that.
Definitely, yes.
No
Excellent.
problem.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and thanks also for hosting these little events. Of course, it's very interesting.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure, and thanks for participating, Fred. It was great. I'll speak to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye, Fred.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.